Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's pertinent when we come to a budget to ask a really simple question. It's a question that I think we should ask every government when they are in office, and it is, who are they here for? Now, when judging a government on a question like that, actions will always speak louder than words, or the rhetoric that we've had from that side of the House this afternoon. And let's look at the government's action. Let's look at their record since they first came into government. Now, they may brush over this, but one of the first things that they did was reorder our tax system so that tax cuts, significant ones, meant that 40% of what they redistributed went to the top 10% of New Zealanders. Now, when this government claims that they are moving back into surplus, we need to keep in context, Mr. Speaker, that they are borrowing. They are borrowing up to $10 million worth of interest a day in order to pay tax cuts like that went to people who just didn't need them. That was the trade-off that government was willing to make. At the same time, they cut things like the training incentive allowance. They scrapped adult and community education. They've poured $40 million into private schooling and established charter schools. Who is that government here for? Actions, Mr. Speaker, speak louder than words, and it's not just about policies. It's about the way they act when it comes to individuals who are in positions of wealth or power. And we've seen some examples, Mr. Speaker, in recent weeks of this government's attitude towards certain New Zealanders. We've seen it with Judith Collins, we've seen it with Maurice Williamson. In fact, we've seen it from almost all of them with their exclusive cabinet clubs, because what the Prime Minister didn't acknowledge today when he tried to bandy around that these were just simply innocuous forms of fundraising is that the people who belong to these clubs are not told they are part of a fundraiser. They're told they're part of a club. They are told they are part of a club. And, Mr. Speaker, a government should never be elected to serve for the exclusivity of the few or for the members of a club. So, Mr. Speaker, for the Labour Party, our driving force has always been very, very simple. Our ethos has been simple. It's always been very clear. We've always been here because we believe in serving on behalf of people. It's always what we have been about. And we're proud of that. I don't care if the National Party wants to mock us for having a value set. I'm proud of it. Ever since Kirk was in this House, Mr. Speaker, and he simply articulated as all that people need is something to do, somewhere to live, someone to love, and something to hope for. And if you want to distill down what we fight for every single day on this side of the House, it's exactly that. And, Mr. Speaker, I've had from that side of the House questions over some of the policy ideas we've raised. I'm happy to outline all of them. Starting in January, Mr. Speaker, Best Start. Best Start, a $600 million investment in children, acknowledging that if we want to move forward as a nation, the best thing we can do is invest in the early years of those children by giving their parents choices, by ensuring that they have access to early childhood education, by increasing support for parents who need it most. That is what that package was about, and that is something we're really proud of. And secondly, what about housing? That simple issue of somewhere to live. It is not a simple issue in New Zealand anymore, Mr. Speaker. It is increasingly unaffordable for families, and particularly families with newborns are moving more and more often. That impacts on children's education. That's why we have boldly said we will build 100,000 houses. We will introduce a capital gains tax. We will introduce monetary policy that is focused on families, interest rates and, Mr. Speaker, employment. That is why we have boldly said we don't care if we are having to be world leaders in monetary policy if it means doing things on behalf of people and putting people first in a market economy. Mr. Speaker, we have always been proud of our history. We're proud of our ideas because they're positive. They're about focusing on what matters most. And it's not about a club, Mr. Speaker. It will always be about people.
Maggie Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Next Thursday, our Finance Minister, the